Most people live their lives without realizing that they are constantly reinforcing certain patterns of thought. The mind, left unobserved, tends to fall into habits, repeating the same beliefs, emotions, and reactions over and over again. These patterns create the reality a person experiences, whether they are aware of it or not. If someone has lived with fear, self-doubt, or negativity for years, those thought patterns become deeply ingrained, shaping how they see the world and themselves. The challenge is that these patterns are not always true, yet they feel real because they have been reinforced for so long. Consider a person who grew up believing that they are not worthy of success. Maybe they heard it from a parent, maybe they experienced failure early in life, or maybe they compared themselves to others and concluded that they didn't measure up. Whatever the reason, this thought pattern became a part of their internal world. Over time, they began making choices that aligned with that belief. Avoiding challenges, settling for less, and staying in their comfort zone. The belief shaped their actions, and their actions reinforced the belief. This cycle continues unless they become aware of it and make a conscious effort to break it. Many people wonder why they struggle to change certain aspects of their lives. They set goals, try new habits, and make efforts to think more positively, but they keep falling back into the same patterns. The reason is that deep-rooted thought patterns do not change overnight. They have been built over years, sometimes decades, and they require intentional effort to rewire. The mind is like a muscle. Whatever it is trained to do repeatedly, it becomes stronger at doing. If it has been trained to think in a way that limits a person, it will continue to do so until new patterns are deliberately established. The key to breaking these patterns is awareness. Most people do not realize that they are reinforcing their limiting beliefs every day. The way they speak, the way they react, the way they interpret situations, all of these things keep the cycle alive. If a person consistently tells themselves, "I always fail," then every mistake they make will reinforce that belief. Even if they succeed at something, their mind will downplay it or find a way to discredit it. This is how the unobserved mind works. It seeks confirmation for what it already believes. But when a person begins to observe their mind, they start to see these patterns clearly. They notice how they talk to themselves. They recognize when fear is holding them back. They become aware of the excuses they make and the ways they sabotage their own growth. And with this awareness comes the power to change. When you see a pattern, you can disrupt it. You can challenge the thoughts that no longer serve you. You can replace them with new beliefs. And over time, those new beliefs will create new actions, which will lead to new results. This process takes time and effort. The mind resists change because it is comfortable with the familiar. Even negative thought patterns feel safe because they are what the mind knows. That is why many people find it difficult to break free from old ways of thinking, even when they want to. But the truth is, transformation is possible for anyone who is willing to do the work. It begins with the simple act of noticing, paying attention to what thoughts arise, questioning whether they are true, and deciding whether to accept or reject them. Every time you choose a new thought, you are weakening an old pattern. Every time you refuse to entertain fear, you are breaking its hold on you. Every time you speak life over yourself instead of doubt, you are rewiring your mind for success. The key is consistency. The more you practice, the stronger the new patterns become, until one day they replace the old ones completely. People who master their minds understand this process deeply. They know that their past does not define them, their mistakes do not limit them, and their fears do not control them. They have trained their minds to align with truth, not with old conditioning. They do not allow thoughts to run unchecked. Instead, they direct their minds toward what they want to create in their lives. This is not just positive thinking, it is a disciplined approach to shaping the reality they desire. When you commit to breaking old patterns, everything in your life begins to shift. You start to see opportunities where you once saw obstacles. You take action where you once hesitated. You believe in yourself where you once doubted. And as you continue reinforcing these new thought patterns, they become your new reality. You are not stuck. You are not powerless. The same mind that created the limitations you have lived with is the same mind that can set you free. The question is, will you take control of it, or will you allow old patterns to dictate your future? The choice is yours. The power of presence is one of the most underestimated yet transformative forces in a person's life. In a world where the mind is constantly occupied, jumping between memories of the past and worries about the future, very few people experience the fullness of the present moment. The mind, when unobserved, is a wanderer. It drifts into regrets, revisits past wounds, and constructs imaginary scenarios of what might go wrong. This tendency creates unnecessary suffering as people relive painful experiences that no longer exist and anticipate problems that may never happen. Most people do not realize how much of their energy is drained by the wandering mind. A person may physically be in one place, but mentally they are somewhere else. They could be in a conversation but not fully listening as their mind is occupied with what they will say next. They could be working on an important task but struggling to focus because their mind is dwelling on something that happened earlier. This lack of presence leads to inefficiency, disconnection, and missed opportunities. It is the reason why many people feel exhausted even when they haven't physically exerted themselves. Their mind has been racing all day, draining their energy with unnecessary thoughts. When a person learns to be present, everything changes. Presence brings clarity, peace, and effectiveness. It allows a person to engage fully with life, to experience each moment with awareness, and to respond rather than react. Presence is not just about avoiding distractions. It is about developing a deep connection with the now. It is about being fully alive in whatever is happening, whether it is a simple conversation, a work project, or a quiet moment of reflection. The greatest challenge to presence is the illusion that something else is more important than the current moment. The mind constantly tells a person that they need to be somewhere else, doing something else, thinking about something else. It convinces them that happiness is in the future, that once they achieve a goal, fix a problem, or reach a milestone, then they can finally be at peace. But this is a trap. When that moment comes, the mind will again project into the future, keeping peace always out of reach. The truth is, peace is only found in the present. The ability to be fully engaged in the now is the key to breaking free from the cycle of mental unrest. Consider how different life would be if every action was done with full attention. Eating without distraction, listening without waiting to respond, working without thinking about the end result. These small shifts create a powerful transformation. When a person is fully present, they begin to notice the richness of life. The simplest moments, breathing, feeling the warmth of the sun, hearing a loved one's voice, become meaningful. Life slows down, not because time has changed, but because the person is finally experiencing it fully. Presence also deepens relationships. Many conflicts arise not because of what is said, but because people are not truly listening to each other. They are reacting based on their mental assumptions, their past experiences, or their own insecurities. But when a person listens with full presence, they hear beyond words. They pick up on emotions, they understand perspectives, and they respond with wisdom rather than impulse. This is why the most powerful communicators are not just those who speak well, but those who listen deeply. Beyond relationships, presence enhances performance in every area of life. Whether in business, sports, or creative endeavors, those who master the art of being present achieve at a higher level. A distracted mind leads to mistakes, while a focused mind produces excellence. The best athletes, artists, and leaders are not those with the most talent alone, but those who have trained their minds to be fully engaged in the task at hand. Practicing presence is simple, but not easy. The mind has been conditioned to wander for years, and breaking this habit requires conscious effort. It begins with awareness, catching the mind when it drifts and bringing it back to the now. It is a practice of patience, learning to focus on what is happening right now rather than chasing thoughts that serve no purpose. The more this skill is developed, the more natural it becomes. Over time, presence becomes a way of life rather than something a person tries to do. The rewards of presence are immense. It brings a sense of calm in chaos, clarity in confusion, and joy in the ordinary. It allows a person to experience life as it is, rather than through the filter of distractions and mental noise. It is the foundation of inner peace, and the key to living with purpose and power. When a person learns to be present, they no longer chase moments, they fully live them. And in doing so, they unlock a level of fulfillment that cannot be found anywhere else. The unobserved mind often operates on autopilot, reacting to circumstances without intentional direction. It is shaped by past experiences, external influences, and deeply ingrained beliefs that dictate how a person thinks, feels, and acts. When a person is unaware of how their mind is functioning, they assume that their thoughts are simply the way things are, rather than seeing them as patterns that can be changed. The power of choice is one of the greatest tools a person possesses. Yet many people live as though they have no control over their thoughts, emotions, or responses to life. They react rather than respond, assuming that their circumstances dictate their reality. But the truth is, the ability to choose how to think and respond in any situation is the key to transformation. The mind is constantly processing information, but much of this processing happens automatically. When something happens, the mind quickly categorizes it based on past experiences, assigning meaning and determining how to react. If someone has been conditioned to see failure as proof of their inadequacy, then every setback will reinforce that belief. If they have been conditioned to expect rejection, they may interpret neutral situations as personal attacks. The unobserved mind does not stop to question these responses. It simply follows the established patterns. This is why people often feel stuck in cycles of negativity, fear, or self-doubt. They do not realize that they are following old mental programs rather than making conscious choices. However, when a person begins to observe their mind, they start to see these automatic reactions for what they are: habits of thought rather than absolute truth. They begin to recognize that they have the power to interrupt these patterns and choose a different response. They no longer have to accept every thought that arises as reality. They can examine their thoughts, question their validity, and replace them with more empowering perspectives. This is the power of choice in action, the ability to decide which thoughts to entertain and which ones to let go. Many people assume that their emotions control them, but emotions are simply responses to thoughts. If a person consistently thinks fearful thoughts, they will feel fear. If they dwell on negative possibilities, they will feel anxiety. But if they consciously choose to focus on faith, gratitude, and possibility, their emotions will shift accordingly. The key is not to suppress emotions, but to recognize that they are rooted in thought patterns. By choosing different thoughts, a person can reshape their emotional experience. The power of choice extends beyond thoughts and emotions. It affects every area of life. A person who feels stuck in a negative environment may believe they have no options, but in reality, they always have choices. They can choose to shift their perspective, to take action, to set boundaries, or to walk away. Even in difficult circumstances, there is always a choice in how to respond. The most powerful people are not those who control everything around them, but those who control how they respond to whatever comes their way. This ability to choose is what separates those who live intentionally from those who live reactively. People who understand the power of choice do not allow circumstances to dictate their inner state. They take responsibility for their thoughts, their emotions, and their actions. They refuse to be victims of their past, their fears, or other people's opinions. Instead, they take ownership of their minds and direct their lives with purpose. It is important to recognize that choosing a new way of thinking is not always easy. The mind resists change, preferring the familiar, even if the familiar is painful. This is why many people struggle to break free from limiting beliefs. But just because something feels true does not mean it is true. A person may feel like they are not good enough, but that does not mean they are not. The moment they choose to challenge these beliefs, they begin to weaken them. Every thought is a seed. The thoughts a person chooses to nurture will grow and shape their reality. If they consistently choose thoughts of possibility, courage, and faith, those qualities will become their new reality. If they allow doubt, fear, and negativity to dominate their mind, that will shape their experience instead. The choice is always there, whether a person realizes it or not. Living with the power of choice requires daily practice. It means becoming aware of thoughts as they arise and deciding whether to accept them or replace them. It means refusing to let emotions dictate actions, but instead using wisdom and intention to navigate challenges. It means taking responsibility for one's mindset rather than blaming external factors. This is not about denying reality, but about choosing how to engage with it in a way that leads to growth, strength, and fulfillment. The truth is, no one is trapped by their past, their circumstances, or their emotions. The ability to choose a new way of thinking, a new perspective, and a new path forward is always available. The only question is whether a person will take that power and use it. Those who do will experience a life of greater peace, clarity, and purpose. Those who don't will continue to be led by unconscious patterns, unaware that they hold the key to their own freedom. The power is already in their hands. It is simply a matter of choosing to use it. Your mind is always speaking. Every moment it feeds you thoughts, some uplifting, others draining. But have you ever stopped to ask, who is really in control? Most people never pause to observe their own thoughts. They let their minds dictate their emotions, actions, and even their destiny. A mind left unobserved will run like a river with no direction, carrying you wherever it pleases. But what if you could take control? What if you could step back and watch your mind rather than being controlled by it? But the question is, who is in control? When the mind is left unobserved, it operates on autopilot, replaying the same fears, doubts, and anxieties over and over again. This is why awareness is the key to transformation. Without it, the mind leads us down paths we never consciously chose. shaping our emotions, decisions, and even our destiny. Most people live without ever questioning their thoughts. They believe whatever their mind tells them. If the mind whispers, "You're not good enough," they accept it as truth. If it says, "You will never succeed," they believe it without hesitation. But the mind is not always right. It has been shaped by past experiences, by childhood conditioning, by external influences, and if left unchecked, it can become the greatest obstacle to a person's growth. The unobserved mind is like a river without banks, flowing wildly, crashing into everything, and flooding the landscape of our lives with unnecessary struggles. When you become aware of your mind, you step into a place of power. Awareness allows you to separate yourself from your thoughts and observe them objectively. You begin to recognize that just because a thought appears in your mind, that does not mean it is true. Awareness is like a light in the darkness. Suddenly, the illusions created by the unobserved mind lose their power. You see clearly. You realize that the fears that once paralyzed you were just thoughts, not reality. A person who lacks awareness is controlled by the fluctuations of their mind. One moment they feel confident, the next they feel insecure. One day they are hopeful, the next they are overwhelmed with doubt. This happens because their thoughts are left unexamined. But when a person becomes aware of their mind, they can choose how to respond. They can challenge negative thoughts, reject limiting beliefs, and replace fear with faith. Awareness also brings freedom. Imagine living your whole life inside a room, believing that the walls around you were unbreakable. Then one day you realize the walls were only an illusion. You were free to walk out at any time. That is what happens when you become aware of your mind. You recognize that you are not trapped by your thoughts. You are not limited by your past. You are not a prisoner of fear. You are free to choose a new path, to align your thoughts with truth, to renew your mind daily. This is why awareness must be intentional. It is not something that happens by accident. It requires taking time to step back from the constant stream of thoughts and simply observe. It means asking yourself, why do I think this way? Is this thought serving me, or is it keeping me stuck? It means choosing to dwell on what is good, what is true, what is life-giving, rather than allowing the unobserved mind to run unchecked. Many people search for change in the external world. They think that if they get a better job, find the right relationship, or achieve a certain goal, they will finally be at peace. But real transformation begins within. Until a person gains control over their mind, no external change will bring lasting fulfillment. A person who lacks awareness will always find something to worry about, something to complain about, something to fear, because their mind has been trained to operate in that way. But when a person becomes aware, everything shifts. Suddenly, they can see opportunities where they once saw obstacles. They can find joy in the present moment, rather than constantly longing for something more. They can move forward with confidence, knowing that their mind is no longer an enemy, but a tool they can use to create a life of purpose. The greatest breakthroughs come not when external circumstances change, but when the mind is renewed, and renewal begins with awareness. It begins with stepping back, watching your thoughts, and choosing which ones to accept and which ones to let go. It is in this place of awareness that true transformation takes place. Your thoughts are the architects of your reality. Every action you take, every decision you make, and every emotion you feel is a direct result of the thoughts that occupy your mind. Yet, most people never stop to examine their thoughts. They live as if their thoughts are something that happens to them rather than something they have control over. But here is the truth. What you think, you become. Your mind is a garden, and whatever seeds you plant in it will eventually grow. If you plant seeds of doubt, fear, and limitation, your life will reflect those things. But if you plant seeds of faith, confidence, and purpose, your reality will shift in a new direction. The unobserved mind allows thoughts to run unchecked, shaping a person's reality in ways they don't even realize. For example, if a person constantly thinks, "I am not good enough," they will begin to act as if that is true. They will hesitate to take opportunities, they will shrink back from challenges, and they will settle for less than they deserve. Not because they are truly incapable, but because their thoughts have convinced them that they are. And the mind, once it accepts a belief, will go to work proving it to be true. It will filter out any evidence that contradicts it and magnify anything that supports it. This is how false limitations are created, not because they are real, but because the mind makes them real. On the other hand, when a person begins to take control of their thoughts, they can reshape their reality. If they replace "I am not good enough" with "I am capable and worthy," their actions will change. They will begin to walk with confidence. They will take steps forward. They will recognize opportunities that they would have once ignored. And as they continue to reinforce this new belief, their external world will begin to align with it. Success is not a product of luck. It is a reflection of mindset. This is why it is so important to become aware of what you allow into your mind. Many people unknowingly program themselves for failure simply by entertaining negative thoughts. They rehearse their worries, dwell on past mistakes, and allow fear to dominate their thinking. But every thought is a seed, and whatever you focus on will grow. If you focus on what is wrong, you will see more problems. If you focus on what is possible, you will see more opportunities. The direction of your life follows the direction of your thoughts. The challenge is that most of these thoughts are automatic. The human mind is conditioned by past experiences, cultural influences, and repeated patterns of thinking. This is why people find themselves stuck in the same cycles over and over again. They want change, but they continue thinking the same way, expecting different results. But transformation does not happen by chance. It happens when you decide to take control of your thoughts, rather than letting them control you. A person who understands this principle will become intentional about their thinking. They will guard their mind as carefully as they guard their home. They will refuse to allow negativity, fear, and doubt to take root. They will recognize that every thought carries creative power, and they will choose thoughts that align with the reality they desire to create. This is not just wishful thinking, it is a spiritual law. The mind is a powerful force, and whatever dominates it will shape the course of a person's life. If you want to change your life, the first step is to change your thoughts. Pay attention to what you say to yourself. Do you encourage yourself, or do you tear yourself down? Do you see possibilities, or do you focus only on obstacles? Do you expect good things to happen, or are you always preparing for the worst? These inner dialogues are not harmless. They are shaping your destiny. One of the most powerful things a person can do is to consciously reprogram their mind. This means replacing negative thoughts with positive truths, rejecting limiting beliefs, and training the mind to see possibilities instead of problems. It means speaking life over yourself, even when circumstances seem difficult. It means choosing to believe in the unseen before it manifests. This is how breakthroughs happen. Not by waiting for external circumstances to change, but by changing what is happening inside the mind first. Everything you desire, peace, success, joy, fulfillment, begins with your thoughts. When you align your mind with truth, your life will begin to reflect that truth. But if you allow your mind to run unchecked, it will lead you in directions you never intended to go. The choice is yours. Will you be a passive participant in your own mind, or will you take control and create a life that reflects the truth of who you were meant to be? The answer to that question will determine the reality you experience. The mind is constantly producing thoughts, some helpful, some harmful, some neutral. Yet, most people are unaware of the sheer volume of thoughts passing through their minds daily. They assume that their thoughts are simply part of who they are, not realizing that these thoughts are often conditioned responses, shaped by past experiences, fears, and societal influences. The problem arises when a person fails to examine their thoughts. When thoughts go unexamined, they control emotions, decisions, and even the trajectory of one's life without conscious awareness. Think about how often people accept their thoughts as absolute truth. If a thought arises that says, "You're not good enough," many people don't stop to question it. Instead, they feel the weight of that thought as if it were a fact. Their confidence shrinks, their actions reflect self-doubt, and they begin to hold themselves back in life. But where did that thought come from? Was it something they were told as a child? Was it the result of a past failure? Did it originate from comparison with others? Most people don't take the time to ask these questions. They assume that because the thought appeared in their mind, it must be true. And this is how the unexamined mind shapes reality. When a person does not examine their thoughts, they are living on autopilot. They react instead of respond. They are easily influenced by circumstances, emotions, and external pressures. Their thinking is shaped by habits they never consciously chose. And because of this, they find themselves caught in cycles of fear, negativity, or doubt, without ever realizing that they have the power to break free. The first step toward transformation is learning to observe your thoughts without immediately accepting them as truth. This means stepping back and becoming a witness to the mind's activity rather than being absorbed by it. It means questioning, is this thought serving me or is it holding me back? Is this thought rooted in fear or is it grounded in truth? It means recognizing that just because a thought exists does not mean you have to accept it. A person who masters this skill gains a new level of freedom. Imagine carrying a heavy bag on your shoulders for years, believing it was part of you. Then one day you realize that the bag isn't attached. You can set it down at any time. This is what happens when you begin to observe your thoughts. You realize that you are not your thoughts. You are the one who chooses which thoughts to accept and which to let go of. Most people feel trapped by their minds because they have never questioned their mental patterns. They think, "This is just how I am," without realizing that their identity has been shaped by years of unchecked thoughts. But when you begin to observe your mind, you see the patterns for what they are: conditioning, not truth. You begin to notice that many of the thoughts holding you back are not even yours. They were inherited from past experiences, from people who spoke negativity over you, from fears that were never confronted. And once you see this, you can begin to let go. Observing the mind also leads to emotional mastery. Many people believe they are at the mercy of their emotions, not realizing that emotions are often triggered by unexamined thoughts. When you feel anxious, what thought preceded that feeling? When you feel discouraged, what belief is fueling that emotion? If you don't take the time to observe your thoughts, your emotions will control you. But if you develop awareness, you can break the cycle. Instead of reacting emotionally to every thought, you can pause, examine it, and it is about gaining clarity. It is about seeing reality as it truly is, rather than through the lens of fear, doubt, or past conditioning. When you develop this awareness, you step into a place of power. Instead of being a victim of your thoughts, you become the master of them. The most successful, fulfilled, and peaceful people are not those who never have negative thoughts. They are those who have learned to observe their minds, recognize unhealthy thought patterns, and replace them with thoughts that serve their highest purpose. They understand that transformation does not begin with changing external circumstances. It begins in the mind. When you make the decision to observe your thoughts, your entire life will begin to shift. You will become more intentional in your actions. You will make better decisions. You will stop being held back by limiting beliefs. And most importantly, you will gain the ability to shape your mind in a way that aligns with the life you truly desire. This is the power of awareness. It is the difference between living on autopilot and living with purpose. It is the key to breaking free from old patterns and stepping into a new reality. And it all begins the moment you decide to observe, question, and take control of your thoughts.